Hello, welcome back. This is our third video. It's so exciting. We've made it 3 whole videos. Yeah, that's it's a big accomplishment for someone who thought they would never even post a video because they're scared of what other people think. 3 videos is a lot, and I kind of have plans to keep this up. So we have plans for upcoming videos. I think we're going to keep going. We're going to talk about all of the books that I read in the month of March. This was my slowest month of this year, but still, honestly, a pretty good number of books for me on the whole from the last several years of reading. January and February were wild with how many books that I read. And I feel like I still got a good number done in March, but hopefully with the smaller number of books to talk about, we can do a little bit more of an in-depth review. All right, so I did 6 books in the month of March. 5 I finished, and I had 1 DNF, and it was my first DNF of the year. If you don't know, DNF is just short for did not finish. I feel like I'm pretty stubborn about finishing books. I am a mood reader, so sometimes I'll pick up a book and then realize that it's not for me, but I'll keep it around and I know I'll finish it when I'm better in that mood. I have a couple of examples on my to be read section of my bookshelf. On my to be read section of my bookshelf. But this was a book that I bought and I was super excited for, and I decided that I'm not finishing it now, nor do I see myself finishing at least this version of this book. So without further ado, The 6 Olympians. I was super excited about this book because if you haven't watched my other 2 videos, I'm a big Greek mythology nerd. And this seemed right up my alley. The premise is that the 6 Olympians did not defeat Kronos, and they've been banished to Earth as mortals, and they don't have their memories until they start to turn 16, and then they slowly start getting the memories back. And after they get these memories back, they then are going to have to try and defeat Kronos again. It sounds perfect. I mean, it sounds so good that I was like, take my money, buy it. However, I think this book really lacked in editing. Yeah, it lacked in editing. This was self-published, and I have read some fan fiction before, so I wasn't really nervous about getting a self-published book. Actually, I was very impressed because writing a book, very impressive, and then going through and doing all the steps to self-publish, I personally could not imagine the hard work that went into that. So props off to Maria, if that's her real name, the author's real name. A very impressive feat. And I think if this book got picked up by a traditional publisher and had the benefit of an editor or multiple editors looking over and helping refine, if it had that advantage, I could see this being an excellent book. So if the 6 Olympians were ever to be picked up and traditionally published, I'm sure it would probably undergo a name change. I know there are a couple of books that I've read that started as fanfics or traditionally published and then later got picked up, and they're wonderful. So for now, this is a DNF for me, but sometime in the future, I could see myself going back to it if it has undergone editing. Yeah, for the longest time, I absolutely had to finish books. And occasionally I still get that way. And if I pick it up and start it, I need to get through it. And I find if I get over 50% of the way through a book, it's a lot harder for me to DNF. So that's a process that I'm still working on for myself.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to talk about our next two books for March. They were my audiobooks this month. I'm talking about them together because I listened to them back to back, and they're also a completed duology by Rebecca Ross, so it made sense in my brain to talk about them together. The first book is Divine Rivals, and the second book is Ruthless Vows. These are set in a place like Earth, like our world, except for there's like little everyday magic. So, a perfect example is there's a coffee shop where the drinks are always at the perfect temperature for you. They never get too hot and they never get too cold. Hades just bumped the camera. Sorry. The grocery store can tell how much money you have to spend there and will rearrange itself so that the products that they want you to buy, you're like more drawn to. Um, and I would say it's not modern day. In my brain, it was kind of like World War II era, and that might just be because there's also a war going on in this duology between two of the gods. So we have our female main character, Iris Winnow, and she is an intern at a newspaper and she wants to become a journalist. However, she has a rival there, divine rivals, you might say. Um, and he also would like to become a journalist or a columnist. I guess they're already journalists, even as interns, they still write for the newspaper. And we follow Iris, and her rival's name is Roman Kit. And we follow them over the course of their story, writing about what's going on in their world. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say that this is an enemies to, we can say enemies to friends to lovers in the first book. And then in the second book, I would say again, it's an enemies to lovers, but enemies very briefly, like maybe like the first handful of chapters, they're enemies. Um, I really liked both of these books. I gave the first one a 3.75 star and the second one a 3 stars out of 5. Um, I think the only thing that could have made this better is honestly if it were a standalone book and everything talked about in both of the books were kind of combined together. Um, I have a friend who recommended the first book to me, and then a different friend who we try and pick books that sound interesting to both of us. We've been doing about one book a month, and then we'll just text about it. We'll be like, oh, I'm at this part, and this is how I feel. And at the end, we both agreed that we really liked this duology, but that it might have served better as just a longer standalone novel. Because there are definitely some slow parts to both books. I think there are plenty of very interesting characters that we meet and learn and love, but overall, I think it maybe would have been like a 4 stars if it was a longer standalone. And I'm very lucky that I was able to just listen to them back to back and I didn't have to live on a cliffhanger for however long it took for the second book to come out. I love it when that happens for me. I love when I find a series that is either completed or more than halfway done, and I can just kind of immerse myself in the world. Um, yeah, that's Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. And then the rest of the month, the rest of the books we're talking about are physical books, and they're books that I have, which, hooray! So the next book that I read in March was Funny Story by Emily Henry. So we have our female lead, Daphne, and our male lead, Miles, and they've both recently been dumped by their partners who happen to be childhood best friends. So Daphne was engaged to Peter, and the night of his bachelor party, his best friend since childhood, Petra, was there because she's just one of the guys. And while they're out, they realize that actually they're madly in love with each other, and they've been madly in love with each other. And it almost feels like we're coming in at the end of a romantic comedy where the best friends who you've been rooting for all along finally get together. Except for they're kind of the bad guys in this point of view. We're seeing the other end of it. We're seeing the life that gets ruined. And Daphne is not like some evil antagonist. She's just a woman who thought she was in love, whose fiance dumped her a month before they were supposed to get married, and kind of kicked her out of the house because him and Petra were coming back after their spontaneous getaway. So she needed a place to live, and who else are you going to call when you don't really know a lot of other people in this city that you've just moved to? Even though I think she's been living there for about a year, except for the other person who you know has just gotten dumped. Enter Miles. So they move in together, and they're kind of both just doing their own thing, going through heartbreak until the announcement is made that Peta and Petra are engaged and they're gonna get married in just a few short months. And then they invite their exes. And what are you gonna do when you're invited to your ex-fiance's upcoming wedding? You can't go alone, but you're not ready to move on. So fake dating occurs. I thought this was really funny. It was not what I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting when I saw the cover, but it really drew me in. There were several laugh out loud moments. There were several, like, all right, now we're in the romantic comedy movie. And overall, I really enjoyed it. If you want a funny romance novel that's also kind of lighthearted, Funny Story by Emily Henry. I gave it a 4 stars because it was a really good Emily Henry, and it kind of helped me. So we're cruising right along through the reviews for March. Like I said, I didn't read as many books in March as I did in the previous months. But the next one was a highly anticipated book for me, and I think it was probably a highly anticipated book for several people. Sunrise on the Reaping. If you are a huge Hunger Games fan like myself, you heard the announcement for this book, you heard that there's already a movie lined up for next year, and I personally put a countdown on my phone. I was thrilled. I went to the midnight release party. I I was so excited. We came home. Matt went with me so that I had a buddy, and he also went with me so that I wouldn't have to drive home at midnight. Like, to the extent that I was the first one in line. I looked at the clock, saw that it was not 12:50, 11:50, and I was like, oh, gotta make my way towards the start of the line so I can be the first person to hold this book. Yeah, we got home pretty quickly. I read for probably an hour, maybe 2 hours before I realized that I'm an adult and I have to go to work the next day. So then I went to bed for like 4 hours, got up, fed kitty cats. I was working from home the next day, so I still had about 30 minutes before I was supposed to log in. So I read a little bit more. I read during my lunch break. And the second that I was off work, I closed my laptop and I opened this book because I was so excited to finish it. I pulled myself out of the yoga class that I was signed up for. I had to finish. I ended up finishing this book in under a day. some might call me a super fan. I don't know if that's true. I think there are a lot more fans out there than me who probably picked up on even more details. But I did really enjoy it. I've seen some reviews where people have said that there were too many like cameos, and that they wish that this book had just focused on Haymitch's games. And if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. I personally really liked it. I gave it a 5 stars. My perspective is we had the first prequel, and that really like didn't have anyone we knew besides President Snow. We had some like callbacks. Are they still callbacks if this is set in the past from what we know? We had some names, like last names, that we were familiar with. And Tigress we were familiar with as well, but we didn't realize the connection at first. Or at least I didn't realize the connection at first. And then we have the original trilogy. And this book takes place kind of in the middle of those two events. So I didn't mind all of the cameos from people that we heard about in the original trilogy because it made sense to me that they were there. This isn't a large world. This is a world where the population has been diminished because of war and famine. So in my mind, it made sense that we had people that we recognized just younger. And I think they were well placed. But that's just me in my opinion. I'd say if you're a fan of the Hunger Games, it's definitely worth the read. And if you read it and you're like, why did Mackenzie recommend this to me? This was totally just not worth my time. That's okay too. And I'm sorry you didn't love it as much as I did. But I loved it. If you don't know what this is about, this is following the 25th anniversary of the Hunger Games. So it's a quarter quell and it's Haymitch's games. And as we know from the original trilogy, there are double the amount of tributes this year. So Haymitch is up against a lot more competitors. And I think if you want a book that's going to hook you, especially if you're into the Hunger Games world, from like chapter 1, I was drawn in. I thought I knew what was going to happen because I read the original trilogy and I listened to them just last year. But I was still surprised. Like, there were things I wasn't expecting, and there were moments that tore at my heart like I wasn't expecting. Um, I think I might reread this book and take more than a day, but I haven't done that yet. So, Sunrise on the Reaping, 5 stars for me. I thought it was really good. I thought it was well written, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every little bit of it. So last, but certainly not least, for the books that I read in March is All's Fair in Love and Treachery. This is a cozy mystery. It's advertised as Bridgerton meets Agatha Christie. And for me, this delivers on all accounts. Like, there is a little bit of romance, but I wouldn't classify this as a romantic novel at all. There's a love interest, and there's someone we're rooting for our main character to end up with. But that's not the focus of the book. That's just kind of a side story. The focus of this book is we're in Regency era, and there's been a murder, and the queen needs a trusted female detective that can ask questions without arising suspicion or causing more additional worry, because there's only a handful of people who know that this death is actually a murder and not an accident. Enter Lady Petra. She is the daughter of an earl, I believe, so she's in society, but she knows her way around investigating. And this is actually the second book in a series. I believe there's a third novel in the works, and the first book is called Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man, or no, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Lord. It's on the back cover. And I haven't read that one. I saw this in the bookstore, and I was like, yes, I would like a cozy mystery. The book is purple, which is my favorite color, so I took it as a good sign, and picked it up without a second thought and just started reading it. And I figured if I liked it, I would get the second one once I realized it. And I realized it before I started reading because it does say on the cover, from the author of Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Lord. But I just decided to go for it. I've done it in the past, starting with the second or third book in a series, and it's tended to work out for me. And it definitely worked out for me again this time. I don't know if you can see Nike, but she wants pets. She's like, Mom, put down the book. Pet me. I gave this book 4 stars. I thought it was very entertaining. I enjoyed the twists and turns. I liked filling Matt in on where I was in reading and who I thought was involved in the crime. I thought all of the little twists and turns were very entertaining, and overall, it was just a really good book. So if you also want a good cozy mystery, you could read this book. One of my friends has read the first book because she saw I was reading the second book, and she's enjoyed it. So I do plan on getting the first book and reading it. It's not currently at the bookstore that I go to, so I need to order it in. But I plan on reading the second, or I guess the first one, later this year. And yeah, that's all the books that I read in March. It was a pretty short reading month for me. Yeah, there's nothing really else to say. It's just March kind of flew by for me. It was kind of busy. I've been training for a marathon, which, oh man, I won't go into a long spiel about it right now because we've all met someone training for a marathon and they talk about it all the time, and you want to know why they do it. It takes up all of your time. It's especially for someone like me, I'm a slow runner. It eats in my time to read. I just get back home and I want to sleep all day. That's why I didn't record this video yesterday like I was supposed to. I laid either on the couch or on my bed all day after running 18 miles for the first time. And look at that, I've done a spiel and I said I wouldn't. But my marathon is at the end of this month, so hooray, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I will have more time for reading and to learn even more about editing. I feel like the editing really improved between the first video and the second video, so hopefully we can at least keep the level of editing in video number 3, if not improve upon it. But a sneak peek for what's going on in my April. This is my first physical book of the month in April. As you can see, I'm still right at the beginning. This is by the same author of The Martian, which, had the movie a couple years ago. And I really liked listening to The Martian. I listened to that last year, and I think it was my top audiobook of 2024. So I decided to trust my gut, and I bought this book at some point last year, and I kind of needed to mix it up. March was a really slow reading month. I'm hoping to pick it up in April, get back to more than 5 books finished. And I think this is a really good start. I'm really enjoying this one. So in the April reading recap, which will be out the second Tuesday of May, expect to hear about this. Hopefully it keeps up and I keep enjoying it. But until then, from my house of 3 cats to wherever you are watching this video. I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to talking to you all again next Tuesday. Bye.